Hey everyone, welcome to the Industry Show. I'm your host, Nitin Bajaj, and joining me today is my good friend, Anuj Bhalla. Anuj, welcome on the show.
Nitin, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure is all mine. Let's start with the big question. Who is Anuj?
That's a great question. I'm still trying to figure that out myself. I wanted to be a policeman when I was young, firefighter. I wanted to be Spider-Man or Batman at different times. Ironically, I've been none of those things. I was an immigrant kid who grew up, a really son of an immigrant, that say that right way, but first generation. Grew up on the East Coast. My parents moved here in the 70s. I would say one of the first waves of the modern Desi or South Asian generation that kind of came into the United States. And I grew up in the Northeast. I grew up in New Jersey, Connecticut, Northeast area for most of my life. And today, so much has changed. I think I look at modern California, even New Jersey, New York, and there's so much more diversity now than there's probably ever been. But back then, it wasn't so much. I think I grew up a very middle class childhood and got to see a lot of technology when I was young. My dad was in IT and computer science. So I got to tinker with a lot of technology as I was young. Continued on that path. I think a lot of folks in that top end of the millennial generation, I had a love for math. I discovered that a little bit later and science as well. Just again, not too atypical. But I think for me, the big thing was always trying to answer the questions that weren't being answered. That was always fascinating with me, whether it was like theoretical physics, where do we all come from, and what happened before the Big Bang. Those are all questions that still run through my mind. Uh, all the way to how do we use information to answer questions that maybe people don't know the answer to. And on the advent of my career and even of the 40 plus years that I've been alive, we're dealing with so much more information than we've ever had. I think every year, this is a great stat. Every single year, we generate more data than all the other years of human history combined. And I think there's information there. There's something there that we need to always mind and understand. And it helps us understand ourselves better, but understand our world, understand the universe. And that's where I made my career. I somehow ended up as a data scientist. That's maybe a little bit of who Anuj is, but still, I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't still trying to figure it out.
And we all are, right? And that's the bottom line is our curiosity leads us to explore other things, but most importantly, it leads to we figuring out who we really are, what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, and how do we continue to work on those as we learn more, understand more of not just our surroundings, but even ourselves. So stay on that quest and make sure people around you do the same. Now, coming to serviceMob, tell us a little more about what that is. What is the mission, the vision, but more importantly, why did you start this? As any other typical kid, you have the right genetics, math, science, could have done many different things. Why this? Entrepreneurship is not an easy path, but you chose it. What drove you there? I'm always very curious to learn the why behind people's journeys.
Yeah, you know what's really interesting is I feel like I've been asking myself that question, and these algorithms have gotten so good, like on Instagram and Facebook or YouTube, right? And I almost see every major entrepreneur saying something around don't do it, don't even start, right? I saw Jensen Huang from NVIDIA. I saw a video which like, don't even start. Elon Musk. It just goes on and on. And people are just like but staring into the abyss and eating glass. It's the worst analogies you could think of. I think I was an entrepreneur for a long time. I think I wanted to be. I was definitely a entrepreneur for a long time. But I go back to that kid in sixth grade. I was selling, like I said, these superheroes, Spider-Man, Batman, all this stuff. I was selling Marvel Universe cards. Like I saw a need in the market. Parents wouldn't let their kids buy these collectible cards. Why would you buy cards of Spider-Man and Batman and the X-Force and X-Men and all these folks? Why would you buy cards, collectible trading cards that are probably worth nothing? And we all loved those. We just were like, oh, holograms and these cool art. And I saw a need, right? My parents let me, to their credit, buy stupid things like that. They weren't that expensive, but I had access to that. And I served a need to a lot of my fellow classmates who wanted to buy those cards, but their parents wouldn't let them. And look at me define the parental protections back in the 90s and selling these cards to kids whose parents wouldn't let them buy them, spending their lunch money that they probably should be using to eat, right, on these cards. And I realized that was a business. So back then, I already thought, hey, money, making money, that's cool. Like I like filling this need in the marketplace. So I've learned a lot from that. But I think, look, I did my undergrad at UC Berkeley. I studied under a lot of great professors. There was a great one named Mike Tarter, who was one of the gods in the biostatistics realm. I studied under Vaughn Jones, who was a Fields Medal winner. It goes on and on. So many great professors, so many opportunities. But I did research with Professor Tarter, and we were working in the wineries of Napa, and we were doing like he was a little bit before his time. He was like, hey, we can do these advanced statistical methods, but use like computational power to really take all this amalgamation of large information and actually see things that we couldn't see with just taking small samples. And he got me on this idea that samples in some ways are great, right? But they're inferior to census, right? If you can get census, why go to samples? If you can get more data, go for more, right? And as long as you collect it the right way, as long as you handle it the right way, more data is better. And that kind of embedded in me this idea that, hey, look, how can we meld these areas of both data science, statistics, computation into one? And so we did early statistical machine learning in Napa Valley, trying to predict how much Cabernet they were going to create at the end of the season based on how the grapes were growing. And we took measurements. We took national weather data. We took irrigation information. It was like an early form of a big data project, but without the cloud, without all the NVIDIA processors, GPUs, right? And so we're doing this on machines where it would literally take days to compute this stuff. And it was a fascinating thing to me. And when I did graduate Berkeley, I jumped into this world of consulting at Accenture and worked with then Fortune 500 companies really to help them understand their customer base. I was part of a customer strategy group. I worked with the AT&Ts of the world, back then SPC. I worked with the Dells, the Bank of America's, Wells Fargo's, right? Microsoft's. And so working with those types of companies, you would see it happened to be at this nexus where so much information was coming into the enterprise. And frankly, nobody knew what to do with it, right? It was so much information. They were just deleting this stuff. And they're just like, I think it will have value in the future, but we don't even know where to store this. We don't know where to put it. And that's where the need came in, right? Feeling the need. This time it wasn't comic cards and Marvel Universe cards to sixth graders. This time it's like, how can we take all this telemetry data and figure out how we can offer better service to our customers? What is it that they want to buy? What can we see about them that they don't even know about themselves? So this is where that whole world started. And I was lucky to enter in consulting at this point where data was just flooding the enterprise. But over time, I gained more expertise in this area of service. Customer strategy is marketing, sales, service, customer acquisition, retention, loyalty. These are the themes that we cared about in that world. And at the end of the day, one thing that I saw was customer service in particular was where you learn the most out of who your customer is and how they use your product, right? There's a lot of marketing data, a lot of click funnels and conversions and those kinds of things, all great stuff. A lot of science behind that, right? And that was interesting. And I did my fair share of that in the day. But customer service was really about where you learned about your customer. How are they using your product? Where are they tripping up? And ironically, it was the most underutilized. And so started to be an interesting problem that I was looking at. And fast forward to a point where I was running service analytics for Accenture, we were helping companies make the most out of that customer service data. It was just on a one-to-one level. It was helping the largest companies in the world really utilize that data in new ways. And while it was great work, it didn't feel scalable at the time. It really felt like we got to do this brick by brick. And I started thinking, is there a way we could do this more efficiently, faster than how we do this today?
Super cool journey going from exploiting kids to now servicing
I
big enterprises. Give us a
was a
sense.
kid at the time, so that's okay. It's not.
Yeah, it's okay. We can justify that. Sure.
Yeah.
Tell us about the size and scale, and as I like to call it, the impact the team at ServiceMob has been able to create. And I know it's early days, we're just getting started, but just give us a sense for where things are and where things are headed here in the next few months.
Yeah, absolutely. Ending off on that last thing where we're starting to really look at this service problem, how we scale it. That's what ServiceMob is at the end of the day. We are AI and machine learning for companies to really help them make the most out of the opportunities they can find out of that data. And in customer service, the impact of that is one on the customer side. Can we now measure experiences in new ways? Can we put definition around this term of customer experience that's frankly been fairly squishy in the last 15 to 20 years? And I mean that with all due respect. There's a lot of us know what customer experience means, but if I was really to press you to say, how do you define customer experience? That's where it gets, again, a little bit squishy, a little bit abstract. And a lot of what we're doing at ServiceMom is pouring concrete on this abstract concept so that we can measure the customer experience. We can add dimension to it so we can make it measurable, observable, and truly actionable. There's that old Peter Drucker quote, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. If we don't know what the customer experience really looks like in our data, how are we going to improve it? And then the second question I'd ask you, is there an executive today that's would say that they don't want to improve the customer experience? So everyone wants to improve it, but we can't really improve it if we can't measure it. But then again, no one can really define it. So this is your perfect storm of a problem. So at ServiceMon, what we believe is for us to solve this problem with customer service, and let's face it, the state of customer service, despite all the investment in the last 50 years, and especially in the last 15, where venture capital has poured probably billions of dollars into this space, it's still dismal, right? It's not that great. I think there was a major firm, consulting firm, that did a survey to say, is customer service better or worse versus today, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? And it was almost like a backwards incremental increasing line, right? The further you went back, the better you thought customer service was in time. So it's interesting. There's a disconnect between what the customer expects and their experience. They think despite all the investment, they think it's worse today than it's ever been, right? And at the same time, we're spending more money than we've ever had in this space. The question is, what are we trying to optimize for? And so the grand vision is, I think for the most part, a lot of the metrics and measures we've had for customer service have really focused on efficiency. And that, unfortunately, is what all of these tools, all these investments have optimized for. And efficiency is great, but efficiency shouldn't come at the expense of the customer experience. I think that's the balance, right? Why do we even have customer service anyway? If I sell you on something, why should I even service it? That cost me money as a company. We do it because we want to, one, there's a brand promise. That's important. But two, I think it's also the economic relationship you want to have with that customer to keep them as a customer. The next time they need a product in your space, are they thinking of your brand or somebody else? That is why we service, is because if they have that great experience with your product or service, they're going to come back to you. They're going to keep that economic relationship with you. They're going to stay subscribed and not take their business elsewhere. We want to help enable companies live up to that service promise in the ultimate way, which really means retaining and keeping their customers, keeping that economic relationship with them, and then even going further and saying, hey, look, can we delight them? And can we do it at a price point that's truly optimal for the company in terms of their cost to serve, that's optimal for the worker that generally has to provide service, whether that's human or bot, right? Where are the situations where we may need different agents serving that customer for their need? And then I think finally, the most important thing is, are we able to retain that customer, right? That's the ultimate vote. Are they voting with their wallet to stick with you or go somewhere else? So if we're able to help fix customer service, and I think that's a big problem, you know, it may seem like a very niche thing, but part of why we chose this industry and part of why we chose this problem was because we all are customers of something. We all need service from a government agency, whether you're getting a passport renewed, whether you need to change an airline flight, whether your cell phone isn't working and you need to call your carrier. There's so many different reasons why we need service from the brands we interact with. And I just don't think that's going away very easily. What we need to be able to do is help companies provide the best possible service at the most optimal price point. And I think we can show that balance with what we're doing at ServiceMob.
And funny enough, every single one of those examples that you mentioned flashed a nightmare.
And it shouldn't have to be. And I think our thesis is, if we're measuring customer service with the right KPIs, and I think in the era of AI, this is what's great about AI, is that I think everyone goes to chatbots and copilots and those kinds of things. We're using AI to help us measure things better, right? So if you're using AI with that use case and we're measuring things now better and in the right way, that's truly in a way that's customer centric, now you're going to have your entire organization rowing in the same direction. Now, and when 1,000 frontline workers are rowing in the same direction, along with their supervisors, managers, directors, all the way to that VP of customer support, when they're all moving in the same direction, you're going to get to your destination faster. If 500 are moving one way and 500 are moving another, you're what we call in the industry, you're treadmilling, right? You're making moves and going nowhere. And that is unfortunately, treadmilling is what we've seen the unfortunate state of customer service in for the last even like 20, 30 years, right? I think there's definitely been real innovations, but how they've been applied has not won us favor with customers at the end of the day, who should think that customer service is better despite all these investments, but unfortunately still don't.
Let's talk about going from the challenge for an industry to the challenge for you and for ServiceMob. What's the one big one that you would like to call out?
I think the biggest thing for us is there's Newton's first law, right? An object in motion is going to stay in that motion unless you have that external
Yes.
force acting upon it. The motion that we're fighting against, the inertia that we're fighting against, is 50 years of the same metrics, right? The
Mhm.
same way of measuring contact centers. And people and companies who are nascent to this, that's what they're going to learn. They're going to pick up a textbook, they're going to pick up a call centers for dummies, and it's going to have the same playbook. And again, it's over indexed on efficiency, it's under indexed on effectiveness. It's over indexed on the operational point of view. It's under indexed on the customer point of view. And so for a lot of what we're talking about, we have to be the naysayer to some level.
Yes.
And we have to challenge the status quo for 50 years of a science that's been created by the industry for the customer service horizontal, say. That's something that's incredibly hard. is that we have to tell people who are in the industry for 10, 20, even 30 plus years that, hey, all that stuff that we're doing, all that stuff that we're measuring, it's still important. There's still a need for it, but it's an and, not an or, right? What it's doing is it helps us give that operational point of view. We're missing something very fundamental in customer service, and that's the customer point of view, right? And if we're able to now put KPIs that really reflect the customer point of view, we're going to have better results. And if we can drive accountability to those KPIs that have the customer point of view, you're going to now have better customer experiences. That's going to be the most important thing. And to now convince people that, hey, look, the way we've been looking at this is somewhat incomplete over the last 50 years. I'm going to say it's wrong. It's just incomplete. And with that, you're going to have to be that external force that now fights this moving object that's going in the way it wants to go. So that's our biggest challenge is we have to educate, um, convince, persuade. We have to prove ourselves, which we're always happy to do, by the way. And then we can show people, hey, look, if you modify the way that you're looking at this world and looking at your data, you're going to see things now that are going to change the way you operate, right? They're going to affect the way, the behaviors, the decisions you make every day. And businesses move as fast as people can make decisions. And what we want to do is offer that clarity. So now you see the full picture, right? The impact to the operation, but also the impact to the customer. And if you put that together, we believe you make better decisions, you make them faster, your organization is stronger as a result. And at the end of the day, you get a better customer experience for your end customer, which is, like I said, something that no executive out there would say they wouldn't want, right? I think everybody wants that.
True. And I have to say this, it is a big challenge, but if anyone were to take that on, I can't think of anybody better than you. The passion you have to make this happen and do the right thing and to educate people to move on and be that catalyst, that energy that you bring to this is fascinating. So thank you for being that advocate. Thank you for bringing your passion to changing an entire industry. I think it's more than about time that we made that transition. So kudos to you and the team for bringing this into perspective, for starting to make the changes. And you have quite a few brands that depend on you now that they have tasted success. So kudos all along to you and the team for all of the success you have bagged so far. And this is still very early days. Now,
It's early days, yeah. And when, like I said, Nitin, I was at a funeral for a friend not too long ago. He was in his late 70s. I didn't even know what kind of career this guy had. It was quite amazing. Pretty much a legend in the marketing industry. I was able to hear not only obviously his personal life, a lot about him being a father and a dad and a brother, etc., but also what he had done in his professional life and what he had accomplished and the people he affected in that way as well. And my hope is that you asked me about the goals at the end of this. I hope we are the people that fix customer service.
yeah,
I think a lot of folks out there feel that service is broken, that in 2024, it should be way better than it is. We can do so much with AI. Look at GPT, look at general intelligence. We're making real strides, sending rockets into space every week. It seems right. There's so much that we can do, but service has been one of these things that have been very elusive in fixing. And so at the end of my life, if they're saying, hey, serviceMob, Anuj, they had a hand in fixing this problem around customer service, I think that touches a lot of people's lives. I wouldn't mind that being a life well lived if I could help fix that. And there's no guarantee that you will, but we're going to do everything we can to try to fix this problem because it is a real problem. It is a pain point, as you mentioned, for everyone in some way. And it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, it doesn't matter where you come from. Again, we're all customers of someone somewhere. And as a result, we need service from time to time. And really, what that means is, can we make this better? in a service economy that we're now dominated across the world. We're much more of a service economy than a manufacturing economy. We have to figure this out, right? This is something that I think we owe to each other as companies, as consumers, as the way we interact. If we solve that problem, I think we're doing the right thing. And that's why we chose this problem to really get into, right? We really do believe this affects a wide number of folks across the world.
It does. And again, I'm extremely excited that you and your shoulders are bearing this weight. It's not a weight, it's an opportunity. You did answer that question for me, but I'm glad that you're driving this. Now, as we look forward into what the possibilities are and how we are going to change this, I want to take a step back and look at the rearview mirror and ask you to share two instances in your career, in your life. One where things did not work out as you had expected, and there was failure and lessons. And another one where things blew your own expectations and became a success beyond your imagination.
Oh, absolutely. Where do I start with failures? By the way, you only learn from your failures,
Yes.
right? We always want to talk about successes, but failure is intercalated in everything we do. I remember when we were just trying to get some of these early models to work. And we're working with some of the largest clients in the world, and just dependent on, hey, look, what are some of the insights that we can have? What are things we can action on tomorrow? We were working day and night, and this is from my consulting days with a major telecom company that rhymes with AT&T. But we're working with this SVP that's just hammering on us, and we're working day and night trying to see, hey, where are the insights? Where can we find things? And we're trying again and again, and we just couldn't quite figure out where the value was, right? It was the data was murky, everything. And what you realize is that every day we're getting smarter and smarter. And where you were when you had despair on Monday, by Friday, we're looking at this problem and hammering at this problem so long that eventually we were able to almost see something that was just amazing. I remember we were looking at subscriptions. We're trying to understand churn. We were understanding this is for AT&T wireless. We were trying to understand churn for why subscribers stay or leave. And this is back when you still didn't have these everything plans, right? That you have today. This is when they still have minutes and overages and that kind of thing. And I remember we found this amazing insight around not the amount of overages, but the inconsistency of the bills, right? When consumers had inconsistency around their bills, like what they paid every month to their provider, and a lot of that was because of the overages that would happen. That was the more volatile it was, we were able to see this relationship with churn, and it was amazing. We were like, wow. And we started looking at the correlations between the standard deviations and the volatility and churn rates. And we're starting to see like this amazing trend, right? And this was like literally, it probably felt like weeks, but like I said, it was despair on Monday. And by Friday, we're like, wow, we have something before this meeting. And it's 15 minutes before the meeting. We're still trying to create slides and put it out there. We got this in front of one of the SVPs, EVPs out at that client. And they were just like, wow, how did you find this? But it just takes work. You're chipping away at these things. And a lot of times you won't see the light until you chip all the way through, right? And you get all the way through the tunnel and now you see the other side. That's when a lot of the aha moments are there. And just going through that, having the grit, being able to grind, being able to stay focused on the problem, having resilience, persistence, all of those things matter, right? That's the way we hire at ServiceMob. That's the way those are the traits that I look for in people who want to follow this impossible mission that we have, right? If you look at it on the outside, it's crazy. But why we believe that we can do this is that we believe every single day we're chipping away and that at some point you're going to have that aha moment. And sometimes client is going to have that aha moment where now they see from one side of the tunnel to the other, they see that light, and now they're willing to walk through that cavern to get to the other side. That's the amazing part of this, right? And that's where you see minds change. That's where you see old habits die and new thinking being persuaded, right? Those are those critical points that matter, that absolutely make a difference. And so that's one that comes to mind, when I'm thinking about it. I was like, it caught me on the spot, but that's just one that's so prominent in my memory because I thought we were doomed, right? But just
Mhm.
chipping away at the problem, having a team focus on it. And it's all about people, right? You got to have people who are motivated to go on that journey with you. And if you keep going, you're gonna make a difference. And that's what I would say to any entrepreneur out there. It feels like you're just chipping away at nothing, but eventually you're gonna get to that other side, and you're gonna see something and that's gonna be all worth it at the end of the day.
So true. I want to switch gears now and ask you about what do you do for fun? You absolutely enjoy this. You're truly passionate about customer service and making a dent. But what do you do to de-stress? Just reset and come back with all your energy back into this.
You know, it's interesting because in my life, I've now centered a lot of what I do around this idea of entrepreneurship. I'm still very close. So I did grad school at MIT, and I'm very close to a lot of what's happening there, especially that being one of the premier institutions in terms of advancing things in AI, data science, and a lot of the areas that we're in, right? I like to stay on top of technology. That is fun for me. I like to stay on top of current events. I still love playing badminton. I say this, and I haven't played that much in the last couple of years, sports and that kind of thing. I have two daughters, 9 and 7, who are playing basketball, and I enjoy them thinking that I'm pretty good because I'm not, but at least I'm able to show them a few moves as they're learning the game. But spending time with family, I think being excited around new technology that's out there, I play a few games of chess every day. I recommend this just to keep my mind sharp. In a lot of ways, I see parallels in chess and running a business, especially speed chess.
Mm.
What you realize is that you do have an opponent on the other side. That could be competition, it could be market forces, it could be a lot of things. But you also have this element of time that's also your enemy. So if your flag drops because you use too much time to think about what move you're going to make, you can lose that way as well. And I think that's the interesting thing about startups is that you have to make moves in a timely manner. If you make the wrong move, you might get decimated by your opponent. But if you make the right moves and you make them in a timely way, you can stay in the game, right? And that's a little bit of what I see is sometimes when I see entrepreneurs get crushed, it's because they don't know what direction to go in. It slows down their decision making. And at the end of the day, they end up not making a move and pretty much letting their flag expire. That's what we don't want to happen. Sometimes you have to make the move, and it's not the best move, but it's the best educated move you have at the time. It may be the wrong one, but at least it keeps you in the game to fight for another move in the future. So that's the way that I think about it. And you're never going to be perfect. You're going to lose a few games. That's okay. But as long as you're learning, you become better at it and you become more comfortable to make those decisions faster as they're needed, which is critically important for anyone running an early stage company.
Thanks, Anuj, for sharing what you do for fun. And soon enough, I will challenge you for a game of badminton because that's my sport of choice. So
Awesome.
we should put that down on the calendar and make sure that doesn't take another year to get scheduled.
I hope so. Yeah. With the weather being nice. I don't know with all the wind lately, we could play outdoors, but I know some good indoor courts here. So
All right, it's a date. Now, on to my favorite part of the show, which we call the one line life lessons. I would love for you to share a few of your life lessons with us.
yeah, absolutely. The first one I always say to my team, real champion sweat. right? And this goes back to that story I told you about persistence. It's about
Mhm.
resilience. Real champions are made because they practice their craft. They're in the game. They're not made on the sidelines. It's always great to admire other folks, but if you want to be great at something, you have to put in the time. You have to put in the hours. You have to metaphorically sweat, sometimes not metaphorically, quite literally sweat to make your goals happen. And no one is going to do that for you. There's no easy button or easy way around it. You just have to jump in with both feet, and you have to fight for what the vision that you believe in, right? And so I believe that one is incredibly important and critical. So I always tell that to my team: real champion sweat. If you want to be the best at something, if you want to be great at something, you have to get in the arena and you have to do what you can to really master your craft, master that domain that you really want to drive change in or see a vision in changing that future based on that belief that you have or that conviction that you have deep inside. Another one that I would tell people is, especially in the business of entrepreneurship, but I think it applies in all areas of at least professionalism, is don't drink your own Kool-Aid. This is something I've always said. In a lot of ways, for whatever product you're creating, whatever deliverable you're looking at, you have to be your own harshest critic. And it doesn't mean that you should be obsessed with non-perfection. Sometimes, like I said, speed chess, sometimes time is the enemy of a decent move, right? It may not be the best move, but you have to be able to be a critic of even your own products. That's important. And anticipating that gives you the best practice on how to deal with objections or overcome obstacles when other people or other organizations or other points of view come in and need to be addressed. To the extent that you're well versed in your area, to the extent that you understand your own product, your own deliverable, your own creations from that 360 point of view, you're going to have the best vantage point to solve those problems. You're going to have the best vantage point to overcome those objections and whatever you need. And that's important to drive alignment, drive decision making. Third thing I would say is need to haves over nice to haves, right? Being able, I think there's so many cool things that you can do with technology that are not real problems for people, right? And that's the thing that I would say is, hey, look, are you solving a real need? Is there value in what you're doing? Certainly, there's going to be people out there who make money on the nice to haves, and that's great. But needs are incredibly important. That's the gap you need to fill. Whether it's selling comic cards in sixth grade to kids whose parents wouldn't let them buy them, or trying to put a new point of view in customer service or anything else, right? Those needs have to be followed. So understanding your market, understanding where those needs are, and really addressing that in whatever product or service you're offering, I think is incredibly important. Um, One other thing that I like to say, and this is what I say to the folks who do the selling here at ServiceMob, this is back when I was at Accenture, but RRR over MRR, right?
Mhm.
And what that means, maybe for the audience who doesn't know, is I always say relationship recurring revenue is greater than monthly recurring revenue
Yes.
or annual recurring revenue. We tend to think of things very product centric, right? Hey, look, I sold this product, I sold a year subscription, it's this kind of recurring revenue. Relationship recurring revenue puts another dimension on how you sell. And I don't know if you saw this, Nathan. My old employer, Accenture, released statistics on AI and
Yes.
how much they sold in Gen AI. And one of the big stories that came out in the last few weeks was they had sold more in Gen AI than every other startup combined
Yes.
in the last 2 quarters,
Mhm.
right? So the revenues that they garnered were more than everyone else. And that's because they have a very relationship centric point of view of when they sell. People, they're directors one day at one company, they're vice presidents at another. Think of that as, in a way, that relationship and think about, how you're addressing the needs and the problems that they have. If you're able to solve those problems, that's worth something to them and their organizations. And that's what drives this idea of relationship recurring revenue. It's not so much monetizing relationships, but it's really sticking with people who know the value that you can bring, and then using that relationship to really help spread the word, help spread that new message, help spread that persuasion, that new point of view you're trying to bring to market. But those are the believers that are going to come to you again and again. And that's really through this relationship recurring revenue lens versus just I sold the product and this is how much money I'm making. And then the last thing I would say, and this I pick on Gen Z a lot. Okay, so as being a millennial, I pick on Gen Z a lot, and I think it's partly because some of the messages have gotten in some ways misconstrued. And there's this message about failure out there,
Mhm.
right? And then we talked about it here about failures and that kind of thing. And everyone would tell you, oh, failures. If I succeeded, I probably failed 1,000 times, that kind of thing. And failures are the stepping stone to success. What I have to make sure that people know who work with me and work out there is that failure is an outcome of the success mindset, not the other way around. Okay. I see a lot of people, oh, failure. Yeah, it's great. Let's fail a few times and then eventually success will show up. That's not how it works. It's very important that we put that in the right context. Failure is an outcome of the success mindset, not the other way around, right? You want people coming into the game visualizing the win, visualizing the victory, because there's going to be a lot of times you don't achieve that, and that's okay. But then, in that learning, in that resilience, in that ability to synthesize, in that ability to understand the problem, you are increasing the odds that you are going to win and solve that problem and be on top. And that success mindset is what's needed to continue on. Having a failure mindset first because we've been told failure is great, it misconstrues the tautology, right? We need to make sure that we have the right mindset going into these problems so that we can solve the biggest problems at the end of the day.
I 100% agree with you. And to visualize it in a slightly different way, because I'm a very visual person, is your end goal, your North Star, your vision, your mission should be driven by that success that you paint for yourself, and do it in pencil because that may change as we pivot, as we
Oh,
learn.
yeah, absolutely.
But in going to that, failure is part of the process. You will fail as you approach your goal, but it's not that if you just continue to do some things and you fail, success is not going to be a result of that, right? So that's essentially what you just said. I visualize it in a different way in saying, I'm visualizing it in saying that keep success and keep working hard towards getting there, and you will fail in the process. That doesn't mean you stop. That just means you keep getting up and you keep going to where you need to go. Instead of saying, yeah, so what if I failed 5 times? I'm going to succeed anyways. Well, you got to put in the hard work. You got to learn from your mistakes. You got to sweat, as you said, and make sure you have the right people that you surround yourself with. They'll give you the input, they'll give you the motivation and the knowledge that you need to succeed. So success is not an outcome of just multiple failures, but exactly like you said, it's a part of the process. Anuj, thank you so
Absolutely.
much for sharing your journey, your story, and your life lessons. Really appreciate it. Again, kudos for all the successes that you and the team have had so far, and many best wishes for your continued success. Really appreciate you coming here and sharing this with us.
Thank you so much, Nathan. It was great to be here, and we need to do this again one day. So
Heck
hopefully,
yes,
yeah. I don't know if you have repeat guests, but
we
maybe I
do.
could be the first. Probably
We've
not,
had
right?
we've had a few repeat guests, but only the very special ones. And as you notice, my background is a little different, so I changed my office so I could look more intelligent in front of you, right? Data science, MIT, Accenture. So I had to level up my game. And when I sat here, it almost looked like a virtual background, but it's not. Yeah, you know, just to
Oh,
prove
wow. Yeah, I
it.
was gonna say
Oh,
AI
wait,
is getting really good. Yeah.
we know this guy.
Yeah,
So
wonderful. So yeah, Nitin, thank you again. This was really fun and look forward to hopefully one day doing this again. But if not, I'll see you on the badminton court and we'll take it up over there.
we're
Okay.
going to do both. How about that?
All
Or
right.
maybe the next one we record on the badminton court.
There's no recordings there. I don't want to, you know, I am my harshest critic, but seeing this on camera might not be me playing badminton, but I'm not where I used to be 10, 20 years ago.
Hey, don't back off now. We have that. That's a date. It's already confirmed.
All
Whether
right.
cameras are a part of it or not, we'll figure that part out.
All right. Very good. Thanks again, Nitin. I appreciate it.